Everyone, welcome to our forum for the municipal elections, which will be held on November 3rd. I'm very excited to welcome you here. My name is Laurie Garcia. I am the chair of the East Hampton Democratic Committee, and we normally have our scheduled meetings the first Tuesday of every month. So we welcome you to attend after and in other months. Jackie Pereira, one of our members, has decided to organize this forum tonight so people can be more informed about who is running in the upcoming elections. So, and for this forum, we have invited registered Democrats to speak tonight because that is what our committee does. We support local Dems in elections and nationally in the state. So thanks again for coming. And I want to tell everybody that Chris is over there and he is collecting questions, and he will be viewing the questions to see which will be answered at the end of the evening because we'll have limited time, but we'd really appreciate that you think of some really good questions to ask the candidates. So I would like to start by introducing our mayor, Karen Cadger. And yes, and I have to say that each of the candidates will be allowed 2 minutes to speak, and we have an official timekeeper.
Well, first of all, thank you for putting this on, and I've been asked why I would want to be mayor. And the first thing that I can tell you, it is an extreme honor and pleasure, and I'm extremely proud to be the mayor of this wonderful community. So when I first ran for office, one of the first things, a lot of the campaign things that you talk about, I had talked about accessibility, which I think is very, very important. So I very soon, I had talked about throwing out, opening the lines of communication, which I did, formed a partnership with the Chamber of Commerce, and the businesses, so all businesses would know that they're welcome here. And I established to be accessible, not only open door policies, which you hear about all the time, but I actually have 3 coffee hours a month. I established the Mayor's Coffee Hour, which I'm proud to say really took off, and our city council president pretty much attends, and one of our other councilors, Dan Hagan's usually there, along with our state senator and our state representative. And the reason I started this is because the whole point is to be accessible to the community. And I found out that people are very comfortable talking to me when I'm in the grocery store, in the bank, or out to dinner. So I started with the mayors, and then I also do one every month with the Council on Aging, and I also, the Chamber of Commerce started one with the businesses. So I do three a month, and the one with the Chamber of Commerce is open to all businesses, not just Chamber of Commerce members. So that was one of the first things I did, just to try to open up the lines of communication. The other thing I did very shortly after getting elected was meeting with people that were representing another candidate, to meet with them and tell them, I understand, I know that you're representing another candidate. I am your mayor now, and I represent the entire community. So there's never any, you don't hold any grudges. My job is to represent anybody and everybody, and that's what I do. The other first thing I did when I was elected is when I came into office in January, on January 2nd at noon, we had 7 of our 8 labor unions without working out of contracts. One was working out of the contract for over 3 years, one was over 2 years, and 3 of them were over 4 years, 1 year. So the first thing I did is sat at the table with each one of the labor unions and negotiated the contracts personally. So to establish a form of trust, and
Thank you.
Yes?
Yes,
Yeah,
the time.
stop.
Thank you.
That was 2 minutes? What?
Thank you so much.
I'm sorry.
Mayor. That's okay. That's all right. So next, we would like to welcome the candidates who are running unopposed for City Council District. So we are going to start with Salem. Derby, please.
Thanks, everybody. First of all, I just want to say thank you to the East Hampton Democratic Committee, and Lori, thank you for having us tonight. I want to start off my 2 minutes by introducing myself. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Salem Derby. I've been a city council for 10 years. I've been the precinct 4 council for 8 years. I grew up in Northampton. I moved to East Hampton 15 years ago with my family. I have 3 kids in East Hampton schools. I coach basketball. I coach suburban basketball for East Hampton. My 7th and 8th grade team went 21-0 last season, undefeated. And my wife just opened a small business in East Hampton, a salon at Mill 180 building. I love East Hampton. I believe in East Hampton. And from the beginning, that was my vision, was how can I make this place a better place for my kids to grow up? And I would say in my tenure, it's gotten there. Last 10 years, East Hampton has really come along. So what I did, because I have an issue with talking too much, so I'm going to try not to go over. So I brainstormed some things that I've done in the last 10 years. And if you don't mind, I'm just going to read some of these things, and hopefully it'll give you a better picture of where I'm at. So I've been on the council 10 years, 8 years chair of the ordinance subcommittee. Huge supporter of reusing the mills and economic development in East Hampton. Worked for solar in East Hampton. Fought against the opposition, which, believe it or not, there was quite a bit. Worked to make it possible for the rehabilitation at the Parsons School to new condos, and really fought for open space in the back, which, by the way, Conway School of Landscape Design is going to be doing something with, which is very cool. Worked to reuse the old Dye Works building for affordable housing. Worked with the mill owners to get infrastructure project approved. We're going to have a lit bike path from Union Street to the mills. It's going to be awesome. Rewrote the city bicycle ordinance to help make East Hampton more bike friendly. Huge supporter of the new Pond Boardwalk. Thank you. Supported new soccer, baseball, football fields with the CPA. Supporter of smart growth and sensible development. Fought for a building size limit of 50,000 square feet. And changed the zoning to allow more reasonable growth. Wrote a green car ordinance that helps the city buy more fuel-efficient cars. Helped East Hampton become a green community. Helped get over-quota liquor licenses for Art Bar, Hideaway, Galaxy, and Platinum Pony. Supporter of the arts and ECA Plus. Supporter of the schools. I have 3 kids in them. And supporter of the environment and protecting our water and open space. How'd I do? Perfect. Yes.
And next is J.P. Kwasinski.
Hi, I'm J.P. Kwasinski. I grew up in Northampton and lived in the Valley my whole life. I love East Hampton. I'm very proud of our city and what we've done. And I think we can do more, and I'm looking forward to being part of that. I care about this city, and I'm proud to say I'm an East Hampton homeowner. I've served on the council for 8 years, and during that time, I've been on the finance committee, the property committee. I've worked on budgets and supplemental expenditures. Kind of developed a reputation for always asking the question with the CPA, what money are we getting in addition to the money that we're providing you? And that is, are we using the CPA money as leverage to get more state funds, more federal funds, or private funds? Use it for leverage and we can stretch our dollars. I've been a supporter of open space in East Hampton. You know, you only get one chance to protect our open space. Once it's developed, it's no longer open space. View vistas are important to me. I think we need to continue to protect those view vistas in our city and watch our development such that we have development that makes sense. Smart growth, growth that's off the main highways. I'm not a fan of the highway business district having all cars and parking right up front. Green space is important. I have a strong passion to assure that those who wish to be heard are heard. I love to listen to people tell me, like the mayor does, come bring us your issues. We are an open community. Although I'm running for a position in Precinct 1, it's very important that every one of my friends in the city know that they can call me anytime, and I'll be happy to roll up my sleeves and work with you on your issues. Thank you very much.
Thank you, J.P. And next, we welcome Dan Rist to the podium.
Thank you, and I want to thank the East Hampton Democratic Committee for holding this forum. And I especially want to thank the citizens of East Hampton, and especially the citizens of District 5 who continue to put their trust in me. I've been a city councilor since well, the city became a city. And I'm very happy to say that I love public service and I love East Hampton. I have a brief statement on what I feel is very important now. Being on the City Council affords the great opportunity for each of us to positively affect the quality of life of our constituents, in this, especially the adage that politics is local being fundamental, and why I continue to serve. Keeping an eye on city policies and finances directly affects my family and yours. Of paramount importance to me is the condition and health of our schools and our school system. We must guard against new unfunded mandates from the state and strive to get funding for current mandates that drain our system, the system's available dollars. We must fight for better state funding formula that currently is based on flawed testing and a charter choice system that clearly discriminates against standard public education. As a counselor, I intend to use the bully pulpit that my elected office provides to lobby the state for this change. By reducing the burden that is placed directly on local funding of schools, we would be able to direct more local tax revenue to roads, public safety, and recreation, in all those areas that are currently funded to the bare minimum. I have a deeply personal desire to make this city stronger and keep it as one of the best places in the state to live, work, and raise a family. I've raised a family here, and I've lived here for 35 years, and doing that has made me feel very connected to East Hampton and why I want to continue to serve. Thank you very much.
And we welcome Joy, my co-chair, Joy Winnie, to the podium. Thank you.
Good evening. My name's Joy Winnie, and I am presently the District 3 City Councilor, and I have been this District 3 City Councilor since 1996, the same term as Mr. Councilor Dan Rist. We've been the old dogs. I was a little bit of history. Born and raised here in East Hampton. I attended East Hampton Public Schools, graduated from the class of 1978 from East Hampton High School, and I think presently I'm the only one that was born and raised that's sitting on the City Council in East Hampton. I come from a family of, my grandfather was a farmer and my father's father was a factory worker coming in when the factories first started on Pleasant Street. So my family has history, deep history in the valley of East Hampton when we were a town struggling, growing up, and then coming on to the City Council as a town meeting member, being elected for my first term, and then just watching the progress that East Hampton has made in the last 20 years. I can stand here and say I'm so grateful for the people that have supported me in my elected position. I'm humbled by it that you put your trust in me and to represent you, and that I wish that you would and encourage you to vote for the candidates that we have sitting up here to pick your best choice going forward as we go into the next 2-year cycle of our election. And I just want to say thank you. Thank you for putting your trust in me. Thank you for being there. And as always, you have my phone number, you have my address. I haven't moved anywhere in the last 56 years that I've lived in my house, except for a small stint at my parents' house on Richardson Circle, which was my grandfather's land. So, thank you.
Thank you, Joy. I would like to mention that Jennifer Hayes was unable to be here tonight because she's out of town, but she is also running, yes. And she is also on our committee. So for the next candidates who I'm going to call to speak, the first two are incumbents, and I welcome Joe McCoy to speak right.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Joe McCoy. I've had the honor and privilege to serve on City Council for the last 10 years. During part of that time, I've had the additional privilege to serve as a City Council President. I'm running for re-election because I love East Hampton and I want to be part of this incredibly bright future. I am proud of East Hampton's past, I am proud of East Hampton's present, and I can't wait for East Hampton's future. East Hampton continues to be a leader in Western Massachusetts, advancing green technology and revitalization of old mill buildings. The arts community remains an important part of our economy, bringing in tourist dollars and serving as a foundation for additional small business development. The addition of the boardwalk further enhances East Hampton's reputation in the region. There, however, remain significant challenges to East Hampton. Adequate funding for services will always remain difficult in a slow economy and decreased state aid. I support a strong educational system in East Hampton. I believe we have an obligation to our youth to make sure they're educated to compete for jobs in the new century. And there also, however, remains a significant challenge between balancing support for public education and monies we lose to school choice and charter schools. As a city of limited size, we must have a clear growth plan that will preserve open space and promote responsible residential and small business development. I was pleased to be asked to introduce to the council legislation to limit retail building size. This legislation decreased the likelihood of a small business killing big box store entering the city. The recent addition of 3 microbreweries underlines East Hampton's business-friendly environment and serves as an additional tourist destination and source of revenue. I look forward to working on these issues in the future, and I'm asking for your vote on November 3rd so I can remain your consistent, reliable voice on East Hampton City Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. And I neglected to mention that Joe, as well as the next 3 speakers, are at-large candidates for city council. So Tamara, could you please speak next?
Yes. Hi, my name is Tamara Smith, and I just completed, I shouldn't even say I've completed it yet. I'm up for re-election for at-large city councilor. The reason that I ran initially was because my family lives in East Hampton and has since 2007. And as we were facing a lot of funding shortages throughout the city, it really struck me that I could talk the talk with my kids and my family about how they could be civically engaged to change their future, or I could walk the walk and actually do it. So that's what I did. Everybody knows I came into the political sphere with no previous political experience. I had a lot of academic experience. So my first term really took a lot of time to understand the process. I didn't want to start speaking just to speak. I really wanted to take that time to understand the political process, understand, for example, what CPA funds were, understand what enterprise funds were. There was really a large learning curve for me. But it really inspired me because if I can overcome that learning curve, not being a lifelong resident, not having the experience in politics, and sticking the course and maintaining my integrity and my democratic values as a city councilor, a lot of things fall into place. Ironically, with this last term, we all shared very similar visions. So if I have one criticism of my time on the first leg of this journey was being in too much agreement and not having enough discussion. But for me, I give myself a little bit of leeway there because I was really learning a role. My sophomore term, if I can call it that, would be a lot more, okay, now that I really understand city council and I understand all of these rules and regulations, how can we now move beyond just talking about this department deserves more than this department and start integrating our different municipal departments, continue to integrate them so that we have intergenerational structures within our schools and with our aging. We're utilizing green resources throughout the city, and we are making sure that this is a city that we will age in. Thank you.
Thank you. And next we have Dan Carey.
Hi, my name is Dan Carey. I want to thank the committee for putting this event on, and I want to thank you for inviting me to be here today to tell you why I'm running for City Councilor at Large. And the answer is really simple. I'm running for City Councilor at Large because I love the city of East Hampton. Like 2 years ago when I ran for school committee, I saw an opportunity to help East Hampton, and I not only want to help East Hampton, I believe I can continue to help East Hampton in this new role. I love East Hampton, not just because it's my home and I live here now, but because I grew up here. I've always lived in East Hampton, always called it my home. And I feel like I've grown as East Hampton's grown. And I've watched East Hampton grow in so many positive ways. You know, when we were kids, we used to ride our bikes around the streets and the sidewalks, and now I can ride my bike straight across town on the beautiful paved bike path. We used to climb around the fence to go fishing down in the pond. Now we can sit down there with our Mount Tom's ice cream on the benches on the new boardwalk. Just a lot of great positive things happening in East Hampton. I graduated from East Hampton High School. We walked across the stage at the old gym in the old building, and now the last 2 years I've been able to sit as a member of the school committee right next to the stage in the brand new gym in that gorgeous new building to watch the students graduate. Proud to be from East Hampton and to be graduating East Hampton Eagles. The last 2 years as a member of the school committee, it's been an honor to represent the city. It's, as Tamara said about her first term in city council, I've learned a lot. I've worked hard. I've tried to approach each meeting and each decision with my homework done, ready to make the best decision I can for the city of East Hampton. I was a member of the Finance Committee, chairman of the Finance Committee, also a member of the school district's Wellness Committee. And so there's a lot of work and there's a lot of learning. And it was very exciting. It's an honor, as I said, to represent the city, as that's also an at-large position. So I want to thank the voters of East Hampton for giving me that opportunity. And I want to let you know I'm excited to continue to represent the entire city in this new role as city councilor. Thank you.
And to my right, we have Peg Conniff.
Hi, and thank you so much for inviting us to attend this evening. It's a great honor to be here. My story is a little bit different than the folks you've heard so far. I am not a native New Englander at all, so hang on. I originally come from Chicago and was transferred here about 25 years ago for my company, and was transferred to Connecticut, lived there for about 23 years, and moved to a lot of different places in Connecticut, and never really wanted to stay in any one particular place very long. And about 4 years ago, I moved up to East Hampton and to be closer to my partner, and we both love it. And it's the first place I have been where I really do want to put down roots and stay here long term. And because of that, I want to have a voice. I want to have something to say about the future of East Hampton. And I think being a member of the City Council is a great opportunity to do that. And from my perspective, the things that I care about are, first and foremost, I think schools. I think the schools have got to be the engine that drives the city in terms of the better they are, the better the city is as a whole. I'm also very deeply interested in the open spaces. As someone said it before, you have a finite amount of space, and once it's developed, you're done. So I think careful consideration about what we bring into the city in terms of development has to be part of the consideration, and I think it has to be part of the discussion. So I want to be a part of that. I want to have a voice, and I want to be able to say that I was a part of East Hampton and the future of East Hampton. Thank you.
So they represented the first portion of our forum, and now we're moving on to school committee candidates. And I'm honored to be sitting next to a very old friend. Peter Gunn and I go way back. We actually taught together. So he is the one incumbent running for school committee.
Thank you, Lori, and thanks for the opportunity. For folks who don't know who I am, Peter Gunn. I'm the spouse of a special education teacher and the parent of two young boys who've been well served by their experience, first in Maple, then in Center, then in Pepin, and then in Whitebrook Middle School. I'm also a history teacher at Wilson Northampton, where my boys are now attending, and they're extraordinarily well prepared by their experience in East Hampton. In 2007, I read in the paper that they were having a tough time having some votes on the school committee because they couldn't get a quorum. And I said, you know what, I care about education. I know a little bit about education. I'll throw my hat in the ring, see if I can help. And I was elected, and I've served since then. In the time that I've served, best practice has been a central focus for me, figuring out the best ways for our teachers to work with our young people. I've also spent a lot of time focusing on the emphasis on career and college readiness, and am increasingly convinced that career readiness is as important for the young people in East Hampton as college preparation. And finally, and as folks know, I've been an outspoken critic of charter schooling, and I will remain an outspoken critic if I'm reelected, and I will say things that are perhaps uncomfortable and maybe even unwise, but I seriously wonder why we continue to subsidize families who choose to educate their children outside the district. It doesn't make sense to me. I think it's something that needs to be revisited and challenged. The decision ahead for the voters is how many new members we want to have on the school committee. We'll have at least 4. I will offer experience if I'm reelected, but regardless, I will continue to do my work closely with folks in history classes at the high school as we work together and in support of the young people in the city, whether I'm on the committee or whether I return to being just a citizen. Thanks very much.
Next, we welcome Marissa Carrera to speak.
Hi, thank you. I'm Marissa Carreri, and I'm running for school committee. Thank you so much for having me here tonight. I've lived in East Hampton for 10 years, and my husband and I recently purchased a home last year here, and we're so proud and grateful to be raising our children here in East Hampton. Our second grader is at Maple School, and we have an infant who will be joining the public schools in time. In addition to raising my children with a doctorate, I teach at UMass and Amherst College courses on public policy and the history of public education, respectively. So these matters of the schools are really close to my heart, both personally and professionally. About a year and a half ago, my family was attending the Maple All-School Theme Show, which if you've never been to it, it's a really lovely night. All the families gather behind the school and we bring our beach chairs and we listen to the kids give musical performances, all centered around a theme that is cross-curricular that the teachers organize. And it's such a lovely communal evening. The same night, we got an automated phone call that was informing us that 16 positions across the district were being cut, including art teachers and phys ed teachers and interventionists who were working with our most at-need kids. And it was this moment that was this perfect distillation of the contradiction that we live with here in East Hampton, in which, on one hand, our schools are these thriving learning communities, and our students are doing great work, our teachers are doing great work. But on the other hand, we're facing these really heartbreaking limitations and challenges. So we know that we have at least one building that is failing. We know that, as Peter mentioned, we're losing a lot of students to charter schools and to school choice, in some cases because our schools can't offer our children the programs that they need, and in some cases because parents simply perceive our district as lesser. These are issues that we really need to address. Above all, as a committee member, I would see my role as somebody who's there to listen to fellow parents, to teachers and staff and administrators in the buildings, and also to other East Hampton community members who may or may not have children in the district, but who understand that the health of our schools is really intrinsically related to the health of our city as a whole. Thank you.
And next we have Casey Corsello. Welcome.
Hi, I just want to thank you guys for inviting us here, and I'm really inspired by listening to all of you, and it's a real reminder of why I chose to move to East Hampton. I'm from Western Mass. I grew up in Greenfield, and I actually spent 5 years living in Rome, Italy, and my husband and I decided to move back because we have 2 children, and it was really, the choice was to be closer to family, and so we looked all over, and we chose East Hampton because of, it's a beautiful place to live, and what we found after being here is that it is a very strong community, and there are a lot of really wonderful things happening here, and there's such a sense of, this movement to really, really create the community that I am proud to be part of. And so, my daughter went to kindergarten last year, and coming from, Williston Children's Center, where, people in the Children's Center were, talking about different places to go, and, I felt like East Hampton schools are great, and I went in and I visited them and really got a good sense. My daughter goes to Center Pepin, she's a first grader, and I got a really good sense of how amazing the teachers are. And so as my daughter entered kindergarten, I wanted to become involved, and so I volunteered for the PTO, and I am the PTO co-chair. And I've really found that our teachers in the elementary schools and the administrators and the staff are really incredible, and they're very committed and they're very passionate about educating our children. And I found with parents, you know, we're really motivated and inspired, and we've really done a lot with the PTO this year. And I will be bringing that same passion and commitment to the school committee that I bring to the PTO, because I think it is really important for us to be very strongly connected in our community, and that's also in our school community as well. So thank you.
And our last but not least candidate to speak tonight for the school committee is Cynthia Kwasinski.
Hi, I'm Cindy Kwasinski, and I've been a resident of East Hampton since 1992. I have 2 grown daughters, Megan and Kelly, and I just celebrated my 40th wedding anniversary to that gentleman over there, JP. Professionally, I have been a special education teacher in Hatfield at Smith Academy for 15 years. Before that, I was a counselor for abused adolescents. As a teacher, special education teacher, I'm responsible for teaching and reteaching the curriculum for all grades 7 through 12 for English, math, history, and science. That's a big load. But what it does for me is it gives me an understanding of all of the curriculum changes that are going on in our districts in Massachusetts. It also, being a teacher, has given me the chance to be a mentor teacher, to train new student teachers, and to write curriculum. So I've seen all the different aspects of education. What that's done for me is made me a big fan of public education. I think that teachers, schools, and school districts have taken a big hit over the last few years. We've lost money, we've lost respect, we've lost trust. But in reality, schools do an amazing job, public schools do an amazing job of addressing the needs for all of our children. And I'm a cheerleader for public schools. But what I also believe in is that it's important to have on any school committee someone who understands all of the issues from the ground level. MCAS, PARC, budget cuts, all the impact that that has on a school system and on the teachers, the administrators, and the kids. So if I was elected, that's what I will bring to the table, is my passion, my belief in the public education system, and my knowledge of how all these changes in curriculum and mandates affect our kids. Thank you.
Well, I'd like to thank all of these wonderful candidates. You all had some fantastic things to say, so thank you. And Chris, have you collected questions from the audience? Do we have?
Yes, you can probably afford more. That, I mean, I randomized it all. But you got me to stand. So, okay. So these are either addressed to the city council, the school committee, or to everyone.
Would you go to the podium, okay? Thank you. Do you want me to read the questions? I'll read the questions.
You should read the questions.
I'll read the questions. Thank you so much, Chris.
Okay.
So you just tell me what to do
City
with
council,
them.
everyone, school committee.
Okay.
Yes.
So for the city council, okay. What particular aspect of council action is of concern or appeals to you? So do we just,
I think anyone who wants to go
Everybody
first.
has to.
We'll
Everyone's-
all have a chance.
okay.
And we'll
I'm sorry, could you read the I didn't forget, I just was pretty
As our sign, we ask our sign, okay. So what particular aspect of council action is of concern or appeals to you?
I'll just start. I mean, I think, and I think Tamara touched on it briefly, is...
1 minute. She told me to tell you.
I'm out of time.
No,
Now I
you
can go.
have a minute.
Oh, A minute? Is that I have a minute? Okay. So I guess Tamara touched on it briefly, is that the ability to have a discourse going on. And I think also from the public's perspective, I've often felt that if you watch city council, it looks a little too rote, like yes, 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 no, no, no. And so I think really people need to realize that the real nitty-gritty happens at the subcommittee level. If you want to hear the give and take of, well, how much did that cost and where'd that money come from and can we afford this or whatever the reason may be, I think that would be the place to go where you'll see that real interaction, which is democracy. And so I think that would be my biggest concern, to make sure people and counselors make sure to attend as many subcommittee meetings to partake in that. And so I think that would be it. But the good side, I think my part that impresses the most is the camaraderie. I mean, there is an incredible amount of respect for all the counselors since I've been on city council, and there have been some counselors that I have disagreed significantly on positions, but there has never been a lack of respect or a lack of cooperation or a lack of protocol, and so I think that's what I've been really impressed with as well.
That's wonderful, thank you. Okay, Tamara.
Well, you specifically said city council action, so I'll talk about the actual process and agree that because public speak happens at the beginning of a meeting and we're not allowed to reply to it, I think that can tend to have people come. And as a private citizen, I've seen and encouraged a lot of people to get up to that podium. And if you are not used to that process, that takes a lot of guts to do. To then say what you've been preparing and really hoping to make change and be met with silence and, well, thank you, but we can't really respond to that because that would be a discussion. That's the most frustrating part of the action. I understand the need for public meeting laws and I understand the process, but as a private citizen and then as a city councilor, learning how to field questions and whether or not I could randomly post something up on Facebook or would that be violating a meeting law, those are really specific questions that have, particularly as a public employee, really concerning answers for me. So that's the part of the action that really I find most distressing, is making sure that I'm not doing anything illegal by having conversations with someone and making sure that people don't feel silenced by the rigidity of the rules process.
Thank you.
For me, what was it? City council action?
Yes, particular aspect of council action that appeals or is of concern to you.
All right. City council action that is of concern to me and appeals to me also is taking care of our schools. Coming from the school committee, I see representing the city at large, the city council, another opportunity to benefit the schools and to help the schools, not as two separate things. The school committee should be working in the schools and we'll do everything else. I think it's a great opportunity for us to continue to support the great schools that we have. And also representing the city at large, hearing from the residents of East Hampton and what issues are bothering them and being the middleman between the voters and the council. And so being able to take the concerns that we hear from people and bring them to the meetings and to those discussions. And also I'm excited to work with the counselors, as Joe mentioned, that great level of respect and continuing that. And we've seen great things happen when that's happened, like the building size ordinance and the way how that moved and changed as it went along, but with respect and everyone working together. Inspiring. And hopefully we do more of that kind of work in the future.
Okay,
Thank you.
Okay.
Well, I think for me, the main appealing component of being on city council was really kind of what Joe was talking about, was being on the committees. I think having the dialogue and being a part of the decision making and of getting your voice heard, I think is really important. I also think that being able to voice the concerns of the city and the people in a position like this is kind of an honor, and I really look forward to that, and I want to play a role. And to me, Tamara kind of just burst my bubble. I thought it would all be fun, but I guess some of it will be difficult. But with that in mind, I look forward to the challenge. But I think overall it's the dialogue and the ability to get different ideas and to kind of talk through those ideas and to get different opinions, because I think that is how we bring about change, is by listening and talking. And so that's, I think, the appeal for me.
Okay, thank you. Well, these two papers actually are very similar because both people have asked about accessibility. And how do the city council and the school committee allow the public access to the proceedings? They also want to know updating the databases to make information more accessible, such as conservation land, election districts, etc. So both of these have to do with letting the public here in East Hampton know more what's going on. So I'll deal with the city council candidates first, and then we can jump over to school committee. So I think it's fair to have somebody else answer first, since Joe answered. Would you like to start here, Peg?
Sure, although I will claim ignorance on some of the protocols around how access to the public forum is done. But in terms of databases and things like that, I mean, if the question is, where do we go, how do we get there, how do we navigate to them, how do we find things, I think there is probably something in place already, and I know that the website is pretty user-friendly, so I'll defer to that, and I'm sure our esteemed colleagues over here probably have some more detailed information around accessibility.
And that is one part of the question. Is the city's website used to its maximum capacity? So.
I don't care who goes first, but I do, as a city councilor, want to say that I think we're at a distinct advantage over these, and so I hope everyone realizes that these two other candidates will be coming from not kind of the experience we have. So
I should have had you answer the other one first. Sorry. That's why I just got them.
But I could go. I mean, I think I love accessibility. It's a really big topic. And I'm happy to say that I've actually tried to make some improvements during some of my time. One of the things that I was able to do was actually put city council minutes, I believe, online. For a while, they weren't there. They weren't available. And so we've started to do that with more committees. It was, I think, introduced by the previous mayor, but certainly supported by a lot of the city council, that the city council subcommittee meetings now are required to be videotaped. And I think that's so important for not only transparency, but also ECAT has those archives. So there's a really way to go back if you missed a meeting or something was talked about. So I think that's a great way of accessibility. And I think, things as voting districts, our city clerk, if you haven't met her, Barbara Lombardo, outstanding, one of the best city clerks I think we have in Massachusetts. And she can find most of that information. Matter of fact, I think both of us go to her quite a bit for a lot of information. So an incredible resource. And to finish up, as far as the website goes, I mean, I think you can never be satisfied until everything anyone could possibly think about having is there and is easily accessible. Then you can't stop trying to improve it.
Thank you. Does everyone agree we don't have to all?
I think
Is that okay? Is that fair? Would you like to say anything about the school committee with accessibility to information?
Well, having the advantage of having been on the committee, I would say that, as Joe just described, we are trying to make the website ever more useful and user-friendly, and the new technology director, Ashley, is doing a fantastic job. Everything from making sure that minutes are there and are available for folks. We do invite people to come. And Dan will agree with me on this, some of our meetings are pretty sparsely attended until after the fact, when an issue might come up. But there is public speak at all of our meetings. We've tried to schedule them at times after the workday, but not so late that it would interfere with getting home to get young children to bed, so that parents who have children in the schools can come and share their thoughts with us. We get a lot of information via email. We actually get, good notes from folks who are happy with the experience that their child has had, and we get notes that are encouraging us to reconsider what we're doing and to consider new policies. So I think we continue to be available. We continue to strive to use technology to make ourselves as accessible as possible. And then there's a whole series of ways through the schools themselves where information is afforded to the public.
Okay, thank you.
Can I just speak
Of
to that?
course.
I don't have the experience with the school committee, but I do with the East Hampton PTO. And this year, we've really made it very accessible for parents to come to meetings and talk about a website. my co-chair, Nicole Kutcher, has really streamlined the website. And so I definitely agree in making things accessible for our community and the public so that they can voice their concerns and hearing from parents and families about what's going on in the school. I definitely believe that that is something very important, and if I'm on the committee, I will, look to make that happen. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sure that Casey would agree too, that as active parents, just being in the buildings and being at school-wide events and being available and seeing people on the soccer fields and in the basketball courts, there's a certain level of participation there that would just be accessible as people who are also living our ordinary lives in the community.
I agree. I mean, you said it all. I think we need to be out there. We need to be in the schools, seeing the program, seeing what's going on, and just listening to people and their issues.
Okay. I'm going to stay with the school committee, and if we have time, bounce back to you people. Okay? So, I like this question.
I'm sorry, it's just bothers me.
I know, thank you so much. Take good care of that. Okay. All right. So, what do you think is the biggest challenge facing the East Hampton school system? So, I'd like to start at the other end.
I think the biggest challenge that I see is the money that we're losing through charter schools and school of choice. I'm really concerned about the numbers of students who are choicing out. If I get elected, I really want to work diligently on finding out why these kids leave the district and seeing if we can't coax them back, invite them back, reach out to them, and contact the parents and the kids and convince them that the school system is really solid. I'd also like to reach out to other communities. There are a lot of other communities who have school of choice dollars that could come into our system. I think we need to invite them, reach out to those committees, to those communities, and get the kids and the parents in to see our school, to see what we offer, and bring some of those school of choice dollars back into our town. I think that'll take a big dent out of the problem with our school budget. We lose a lot of money through school of choice.
Would anyone else like to address it?
So I definitely agree with you, and I think that having families choicing out of the community is hurting our community, and it's from the financial standpoint. But I also believe that having parents involved in the school community and very actively volunteering only helps our schools. So I believe, also it's the money, but it's also having families that are active in the community. They can also be active in the schools, and I think, encouraging them to stay. And it's also an outreach, because a lot of people hear the negative things in East Hampton, and a lot of it is not true. And I think if parents and families actually go into the schools, they'll see that the schools are incredible. The two administrators at the elementary schools are very committed, and they're so passionate and so connected with their kids in the schools, as well as the teachers. And I think, having people come into the schools and experience them will keep them in our communities. And yes, I agree, that is the problem, the issue that I see.
I would echo the concerns about the students and the tax dollars lost. I would also add, I think there's a lot of interesting and complex conversations going on right now about buildings. A lot of people have concerns about the state of Whitebrook Middle School, and there's talk of a K-8 building as a creative solution for addressing that problem, and then some of the weaknesses in our other elementary school buildings. However, I know also that there are some concerns that there are people who understand that needs to happen very thoughtfully and carefully, so that way we don't lose some of what is so great about our elementary school structure with the small cohesive community that is the small neighborhood school. And then of course we also have to think about how are we going to balance the budget toward those buildings while really keeping our resources in our teachers and in our programs, so that way we don't have a beautiful new building with a lack of teachers and people who can do that educating in that building.
So I think the question is, how do we fight the fight over the concerns? And Councilor Risk talked about the formulas that are used, and the mayor has spoken to these in the past, so that the resources that are necessary for East Hampton schools to operate at their at the best level possible are available. So we fight that fight, and we will have to continue to make the case for changes there. But then we also need to play within the rules that we face, and that means outreach. I think one piece that I left out of my answer before is that we need to do a far better job of marketing. I don't think public education traditionally thinks of itself as an enterprise that needs to market itself, but the new reality is that if we don't market ourselves, people don't know. Half of the people who choice out of the district have never spent time in the district schools, which means that if we can just communicate to them a sense of what we have on offer here, I think we can turn some of that around, and it's free money. Everybody who stays, we have more funds without raising taxes, which is a challenge that we also face as a community.
Can I just touch on what you said about outreach?
I'm sorry, I think we need to
Okay,
move on
sure,
because we're very limited.
Sure.
And that's a segue into this next question, because we're talking about revenue. And this question was posed in the past, but I'm going to change the tense, because it's not fair to two members who are not yet members of the council. So the question was, has the council considered, but how have any of you considered pursuing a payment in lieu of taxes or other non-traditional revenue-generating plans? And if so, how and what? Because that would help our schools, so. That's a tough question to end with.
I guess I need some clarification on that question.
Okay.
Can you repeat it?
Yes, I'm going to read it exactly how it was written, but as I say, it's not fair to two people who haven't been on the council yet. Has the council considered pursuing a payment in lieu of taxes or other non-traditional revenue-generating plan? If so, what or how?
I will speak about my experiences prior to being on the council, when I was part of a group of people at the schools who really was pushing for an override. But I want to verify, would that be considered part of that taxes, or am I hitting the issue that you're asking about?
I
It sounds
believe.
like the question is about the pilot program in Northampton, payment in lieu of taxes.
Oh, okay. Well, then
So, I don't think the council has considered that formally. The mayor of Northampton just introduced it last week. There's an article in the paper about it. And basically it's taking, this is how I understand, I'm not an expert on it, properties in town that don't pay property tax and that type of thing, getting them to voluntarily give you a percentage of what they would be taxed if they were going to be taxed at like the other properties in town. And Mayor Narkowitz has got an idea out there right now that would get them a large chunk of change, and is something I think we should definitely be watching if it works out over there, and also other towns have done this, and if it does work out, could be one way that we could raise some more revenue. But I just know that from the Gazette article. It's not something personally I've worked with, just in case I got any of those facts wrong.
I mean, I think that it's certainly, I think obviously, the elephant in the room, what it often comes up around is relating to Williston. And, and I think we have the city, the mayor and I have talked Williston, has a really good working relationship with that organization. And for some communities like Northampton, something like that may work. I believe, when you compare the monies relating from Smith versus Williston, it would be astoundingly different. And so it's not really fair, I think, to compare Smith to Williston. But that being said, they have great neighbors. We have been a very good working relationship. They have made donations to the library in the past. They have a lot of playing fields that we take advantage of. They rent us their ice rink at a very reduced rate, and a lot of times they even give us supplies for Park and Rec. And so it may be not that pilot program would work for us, but we certainly are always looking for increased relationships between our neighbors. I can't think of any except maybe some churches that might even qualify, but
Okay.
that's it.
Would anyone like to add anything? I think the other part of that I would be very cautious about is the dependency on the larger societal financial situation. When we look at Williston's position and how they've had to decrease a lot of what they have voluntarily given, along with having a recession, that really created a lot of a domino effect. So with any solution outside of taxes, when we're looking at these types of things, we really need to consider whether or not it's a viable solution, or could something outside of what's happening in the city really affect it. And you know, that part of that has been with Williston, Northampton, is okay, what we saw a lot of these changes at the beginning of the recession, and now we're at a different point, and how are they going to adjust for that? And when it's voluntary contributions, the entity that's giving the money always has the option to not continue to give more. So that makes it a little more vulnerable for me.
Thank you. Would you like to add anything?
I couldn't have said it better.
Okay, wonderful.
I'll end there.
Okay. Well, I would like to thank all of these candidates for coming and speaking to us this evening, and for the members of our audience for coming here and listening. And I want to thank East Hampton Media, and for the East Hampton residents who are listening to us now and watching us now. Remember that elections are on November 3rd, and that's the most important thing, to get out and vote. So Kathy Lynch, thanks again, and East Hampton Media. And we do have an East Hampton Democratic City Committee meeting immediately following this, and we always welcome people to attend, and you may even want to become a member. So thank you. Good night.
I just wanted to mention that last